Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Solo to Entrepreneur Show. You with me, the host Lorraine Chai, as we work our way through from a solo entrepreneur to a confident entrepreneur. So today we're looking into making the right calculative risk taking situation area. And the reason why I got this up was because we always talk about taking risks in our businesses, in our lives, but in actual fact, it's actually taking calculative risks in regards to what should happen for our business and what happens in our life. Now, I have had really interesting conversation with a good friend of mine, Simon Gibbs, who is here with us at the moment. And our conversation usually goes quite into depth. And I thought, why not, bring him over to our podcast episode today as we discuss about this, because this came out the other day. So, Simon, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Simon is originally from, or his business is called the DCI Industries. Tell us a little bit about your business before we start.
Yeah, sure. So I started DCI Industries back in 2010, just as an electrician, just finished my trade, started my electrical trade business, then got into solar and renewables was sort of where everything was going, and then started to specialize in that. And now we purely focus in building off-grid solar systems. And we have a fairly unique system that we now build, which is a pre-built system we send right across Australia and planning to do it internationally in the near future. So as our conversations have been in the past, talking about all the planning and the things that have come, but as you mentioned, the strategies of how you actually make it from starting to, the next step and taking those risks is really one of the it creates a lot of very interesting conversation. We'll put it that way.
That's for sure. That's for sure. So all of us successful people, or most of us, majority of us, I would say like 95% boldly, we all have worked for people in the past, and that's how we develop skills before we actually go into the route of solopreneur and eventually entrepreneur. And furthermore, if you have a big, huge vision of building an empire, so internationally, as you said, like for myself as well, like the vision was always to go international rather than just the local. And a lot of our view in terms of business have been quite aligned. So our conversation has always been really interesting in that sense. But when I first met Simon, what the kind of impression I got of him was something that I can never forget, because the first conversation he had was, should I get rid of my beard? And that was sometime around last year. And the thing about that was he made this calculative, decision. It's like, I love my beard, but, let's look at the bigger picture. What would my prospect think about it? What would my clients think about it? Rather than, no, I'm going to keep it because I want to. And a lot of a lot of business owners tend to go down the route of, no, because I don't want to lose myself. So I'm not going to change this for my clients. But in actual fact, for success, we have to change accordingly, but it's changing, not losing your entire selves. So like for yourself, it's not shaving the whole entire beard, but it's more of grooming it in a sense where it's acceptable, right?
Yeah. And look, I love some of the quotes that I've picked up through my business journey. And one of the ones is this whole idea that you are not a special snowflake. Uh, and the idea that we all have what we think are amazing ideas, but until you test it in the marketplace, it is the customer and the marketplace at large that determine whether your idea is valid. Your opinion of your idea and your opinion of yourself and your opinion of how you present your opinion of your product or offer is 100% determined by the market, not by you.
Mm.
And so if you, like for me, I quite liked being jeans, t-shirt, and a big long, biker beard. And I was comfortable in that. That was how I kind of had self-identified. After getting some interaction with other business owners and people who were further along in places I wanted to get to, I asked their opinion, and their opinion was very different. And so then it was a case of, do I want to be right or do I want to get it right? Now I can be right and have no customers and no business, or I can fix the issues and get it right and build the business, which is ultimately what I was trying to do. And you hit these crossroads where you've got to make decisions where, okay, my idea needs to die away so that the bigger vision can actually succeed.
a lot of people tend to stick to that. Like it's I'll get over it later on and then I'll do the change later. But for yourself, after getting all of our opinions on that weekend, I think it was a weekend,
Yeah.
like you immediately, the very next day after I met you, immediately went to a barber and went shop. So how did that feel after you've done it?
Look, it was actually very much a case of I'd made the decision, and then the outworking of that was simply a matter of fact. So I've learnt to disconnect a lot of the emotional connection to the outcomes I'm trying to achieve. So if I wake up and I'm tired, well, I've still got to do what I set out to do. If I have had a bad run of calls that day and I'm feeling depressed and flat because nobody's decided, I've got been yelled at or hung up on or whatever because someone's misunderstood something, I can feel bad for 10 seconds and then I need to analyze it and go, why did that happen? What could I do to fix that? How could I prevent that from happening again? Am I communicating poorly? Is that what caused it? By diagnosing that, taking the emotion out of it and just dealing with the facts, you can make changes much quicker. And so when I got the information from that weekend away, and lots of people gave that same feedback of, look, if you're going to get into that kind of business and that kind of world, you need to either trim the beard or lose it. And I was like, all right, I don't really want to lose it completely, but everybody has given this same feedback. Decisions made. So I made the decision that evening before I even woke up the next morning to go back and get on the plane and go home. And the first barber I hit was actually once I got back into Canberra Airport, back into the city. And as soon as I hit the airport, I'm looking up barbers, and I found one that had a spot. And I just went in and went, right, make that short, make it neat. The decision had already been made. It was just doing it. And I think that people talk about that speed of implementation. It is definitely a good thing, but it comes from a place of making a calculated risk decision prior to knowing and being confident that that is a good decision. And then the follow through is just a habit that you form. And don't let yourself second guess. A lot of people, further along in business, you find talk more and more about trusting your instinct, trusting your gut. That first, the decision making process of, consider best case, worst case, most likely, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, decide, do it. Don't then get stuck in your head. Don't let the emotions then come back in and you talk yourself out of it. Just, what the right thing is, just do it.
But like
Nothing is,
like what I looked at is emotions is fine to have because don't get me wrong, people are like, oh, but we have to be human, we have to have emotions. But
yes,
it's more of don't let the negative emotions affect you and affect the the growth of yourself and your business. But it's fine to feel a bit uncomfortable because that's the thing towards success is the more you put yourself in an uncomfortable situation, the more you're going to achieve success. Because, as you said, you were comfortable in your bikey look, but now let's get uncomfortable in order to attract more business, right? In order to
yes.
grow that business.
And uncomfort is a really good, that's an emotion, being uncomfortable. And it's a really good indicator that you're moving into an area that is new. Well, if aim is to grow and become better, then you should always be trying to into a new area, a new environment that you haven't been in, because that's where the growth is. So learning to be okay with being uncomfortable is actually a very healthy thing. And emotions are a good dictator. Like you can have really bad emotion. That's a good indicator something went wrong. You can have a very positive emotion. That's an indicator something went well. But making a decision in an emotional state, either positive or negative, there's a saying, never make a decision when you're emotional. And it's because our emotions distort our version of reality. And it's a good indicator, but you need to come back to make sure you've got facts that back up your decision making. And this is where we get into what we're talking about with the risk taking. Taking a risk is placing a bet on an unknown. Because if it was 100% known, it's not a risk. You already know and can prove the outcome. Business, when you're moving into those new uncomfortable areas, is always a risk because there is some element that you've never done before. And that's what makes it scary. And that's generally what prevents people from taking that risk, because it's like, oh, but what if it doesn't work out? And if you sit in that for too long, you'll come up with every reason under the sun as to why it won't work out.
So here's the thing I wanted to cover, and then that was our conversation before this podcast was the fact that we were discussing about, how people say that I have no money and I wait for myself to get money before I invest in myself, right?
Yep.
So I think both of us are on the same boat where, we've lost thousands and thousands of dollars on marketing that did not work. And we have tried things, but it's also knowing when to pull the plug. It's making that calculated decision like almost immediately in order to not affect us on a larger scale, but also learning from those mistakes or learning from those challenges that probably didn't work or worked in a sense that helped
Yep.
us grow further, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think we've really got to get over the idea that everything has to work out first time, because most of your growth comes through your mistakes. Now, yes, I forget the exact saying, but it's something like a smart person learns from their mistakes and a very smart person learns from other people's mistakes. Most of us don't learn to be very smart until we've learned to be smart first. So you're going to fail on your own first before you learn how to learn from other people.
Let's be idiots first before we be smart.
And most of it comes out of the idea because we first get into business because we've got a good idea and we think we kind of have figured it out. And yep, in our head, this is going to work. Because if we doubted that, we would never have started. So we think we've got at least a good understanding of how it's all going to play out. And then the real world kicks you in the tail and says, actually, no, you're actually no good at this. You actually don't know this. There's all this over here you don't even know exists. And that's what you start to learn as you step out into business. And so that calculated risk taking adjusts over time because you get a wider and wider field of view of what's actually going on. It gives you more feedback, but those first round of decisions are pretty much complete blind guesses. And that's generally where we lose the most time and money. For me, I lost, if I talk about it from a win or lose perspective, I lost probably a decade of my life trying to run a business without looking for help, thinking I'd just figure it out somehow. And I didn't.
And in the long run, we actually lose more money and lose more time because
Correct.
we're trying to figure things out ourselves.
If I had have got coaching, if I had have got a mentor, at the beginning of my business career, I'd be miles ahead of where I am now.
But here's the thing though, like a lot of solo entrepreneurs think that they can save money, and we always start by thinking so. So because of that, we end up losing time, we end up losing sleep, we end up losing a lot more money
Yep.
than what we could have.
Yeah, look, and this is, I think, probably one of the biggest keys to growth is realizing that you have to take risks that could bankrupt you and destroy you to make it, to get ahead. Because the other way is that very slow $10 a week aside into some kitty until I've built up $100,000 that I can, blow on a business. And you'll lose that anyway, because you still don't know what you're doing. So you may as well start. But if you can start with some coaching, some guidance, and some framework to make better decisions, you can fast track that process.
Okay, so I love one of your stories you told me before, which was there was an event that we had, right? And then you decided that you're not going to show up. But after a call with our favorite person in the world, JT, you decided to show up. So tell us about that thought process.
Yeah, that was actually quite an interesting one because I had looked at my bank account and what I was doing in the business at the time, and I had a lot of sunk cost in other things. We were on the cusp of implementing new things that had taken longer. So my cash flow was running fairly low. And I was like, stuff's just not working. I've got all this stuff going on. I need to deal with that. I can't really afford to take a couple of days out to go to this event. Look, I can't justify it to myself. I think it's a waste of money. I've got to try and fix this little problem that I've got here. And then on the call, and where I got called out on it, was simply the thing of going, so why can't you make it? Which was a really smart question to ask, because then I had to justify it. And I went, well, got all this stuff I've got to do. And the challenge was, so you're busier than me. And I was like, this guy's worth hundreds of millions of dollars, flies all around the world, does all kinds of stuff. He is flat out, no, I'm not busier than him. He's like, well, I'm putting this on to help you guys. Why aren't you there? I was like, because I have a broke mentality still. I'm still getting over my poor mentality that says, oh, a couple $100, that's a lot. And it's time that I could do other things. If you strip that down, what was I doing with that time? Stressing, being unproductive because I didn't know how to fix the problem. And I didn't have anybody to call to say, what should I do to fix this problem? So I was just left in my head being busy, but not actually fixing anything because I didn't really know what to fix. So I made the decision to go, you know what, you're right. There is a room full of people who are smarter business people than I am. I'm going to go get in that room and try and build some relationships, because if I can build the right relationship with the right people, I can get answers to the problems I can't currently figure out in 2 minutes. But I'm never going to get the opportunity to have those conversations if I don't get in that room.
Mm.
And so I went, you know what? For that, that is a calculated risk, because the risk is maybe I don't meet anybody. Maybe this doesn't amount to anything.
Worst case scenario, isn't it?
But what you can guarantee is if you don't go, it will definitely amount to nothing.
Mm.
So it was like, can I afford to do this? You know, within the next fortnight, is there enough spare money I could squeeze out to get to this event?
Can I afford to lose a day's worth of work in possibly networking with people that I will never see again? In possibly learning something that I would have never learned somewhere else, in possibly getting maybe a deal out of just showing up.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And you've got to take the opportunities as they present. Now, as you get further along in business, you will start to recognize opportunities more and more and more. It's like, why wasn't this around when I was starting? It was. You just didn't know how to see it.
Mm.
So as you get further along, opportunities start presenting themselves all over the place because you're now looking for them, because you know what an opportunity looks like. Hey, there's an event over there and they have similar kind of businesses to me. That would be a great place to go to.
Mm.
You know, if there's you're in the music space, but if there was a concert that had a bunch of famous people, for my business, that's really pretty irrelevant for the kinds of people that I would meet there. I might meet some nice people and all the rest, but it wouldn't really be where my business focus would be. If I'm going to a how to grow your business from 0 to 100 million, and here's a workshop class on how to do that, I better be there because that's what I'm trying to do. And so likely other people in that room are on that same journey. They would be great people to build relationships with for the purpose of growing a business. And so that then becomes a calculated risk-taking decision. For example, so this was the next event I went to after the one we were just talking about. The flights to get there,
Oh,
the
that's right.
few
That,
days of accommodation, the Ubers around, the nearly a week off work, that was a big chunk to have to decide to commit to. But in doing that, I took probably two really key points out of that training. And because of that, those two key points, I came back. I went, they're really applicable for my business. I need to implement these now. We did a bit of a structure change, and we are now getting better responses through inbound inquiries that are coming to us because we've implemented some of these changes. Now, if I hadn't have made that effort, that would never have occurred because I wouldn't have gained that new information.
but that
If you
was the
don't have,
thing. Like, if you didn't show up for the first event, you wouldn't have attended the second
I
event,
wouldn't have known
and
about the second event.
things wouldn't have changed. So you would still be stagnant in where you were back then.
Correct. And to make it so, on the original point that we've sort of talked about before this podcast, on that risk taking, just to give this some real world context, for me to have the money that I've got at the moment to be able to spend on things like this, I actually have business financing in the business at the moment. We took out a loan for, operational funding for the business so that we had some cash flow to work with. And the other things that, that will happen is you have a job come in. And so the way I tend to run the jobs at the moment, because we are scaling up, I'm having to find money and budget to put on new team members. There's training that I need to give to the team, not just to myself. There is more equipment and tooling that we need to put into the workshop. We're taking on a new workshop. We've got to fit the new workshop out. I'm not sitting on enough cash to do that right now. So you've got to then strategize how you're going to pull that off.
Mm. That
And
was
so,
actually going to be my next question. So the next question
yeah,
was
okay.
actually going to be like, with the concept of I have no money, how can I grow?
Yep.
But the thing is, like we spoke about, was, hang on a second, like it depends on your career. Sometimes you have clients that pay in advance, right? So it's like you don't actually earn the money yet until you finish the job completely. But it's like, what do you do with that? Are you going to just let it sit there until you finish your job? Are you going to make that calculative decision in regards to, okay, I'll invest this certain amount and budget it where this goes to my payment on my rent, this goes to the growth of my business, this one is to invest in marketing, this one is to invest in the growth of my team.
Yep. And I think that actually starts a level behind that, which is choosing a business structure that gives you the right framework for how you want to operate. Now, some people are quite happy to operate in high levels of debt. Real estate's a good example of that. You're almost always operating out of a mortgage. And yes, the plan is you're going to and the reason you take a mortgage is that I get the big chunk of money to buy the thing. I only have little repayments to make, which I can afford to do along the way. And then I'm going to sell the thing for this increase in cost. And this is what that whole idea of arbitrage is. It's the difference between what you buy and what you sell, and you make the difference. Is cool. I can do that over this time frame. It's a really guaranteed outcome. I know the market, everything's stable. This is a good bet. You take the mortgage, you make the little payments, you make the big play, you sell it, you make your money. Yay, I've just made money. Then you do it again. Now, that business model primarily operates on debt. For myself, I wanted to build a business model that was not hinged on debt. And so we built a model intentionally, which is a pay upfront model. Now, we lose a certain amount of customers who don't want to pay upfront. It's actually only very small. It's way less than I thought. We probably lose 5% of people because of that reason. That's it. But that allowed us to have a cash positive business. So it increased my purchasing power, because if one supplier who I had a credit account with didn't have a particular item, I have the cash to go to another supplier and say, I need that now. I have the money, send it to me, and I fix this material supplied issue because I have cash to work with. It
Yeah, but
also
like for your
means,
case, it's like it's bringing it forward. Like this is the funding that I have to purchase the products for the customer, but it also purchases the products in advance for the following customer. So it's like a continuous flow in actual sense, even though you're already actually spending the money you haven't actually earned.
yes. So to give you an idea, have a couple of come in. We have a fabricator that builds the boxes that our main off-grid solar systems get built into. I can get a better price on those boxes if I buy 5 at a time from the fabricator, because when they're making them, they've got to change the tooling for every fold or bend in the material they do. So if they change the tooling in the machine, make one fold, change it all again to make the next one, it's a slow process. If they can fold 5 pieces exactly the same all at once, it takes 10 minutes to set up and 10 seconds to make the fold. So it's much cheaper in volume. Now, it's thousands of dollars per box. So I'm not sitting on 20 grand to just go, make me a whole heap. So how do you navigate that? You've had 2 jobs come in, but volume wise, I need to order 5. I haven't sold 5 yet. What do I do? Well, because we're a pay upfront model, it means that I've not only got the cost of the materials, I've also got the profit up front. So now what I'm going to do is take that profit and run my profit way down as far as my expendable cash. But it's a short-term play. I'm going to order 5 of those units. It brings my manufacturing cost down. I'm still selling for the same price. It just means I've got a little bit longer till I return that cash, but I'll be in a better financial position by the end of that. And so you kind of, yes, like you say, you almost rob from your future to try and make this play now, because you can guarantee, or fairly well guarantee, what that outcome is going to be.
So it's like, if you look at it in that terms, it's like loaning, right? You're loaning that money into the business per
Yeah,
se.
so you're effectively taking your profit and spending it today on what will become future jobs. And you do this in a number of ways. Another good one that we have done a few times is when, especially at the moment in the solar industry, it's winter. Most people are not thinking about solar because there's no sun. They're thinking about heaters. And so because of that, the market always gets quiet this time of year. So we had a couple of jobs come in, and I went, okay, so we've got our sales process working. We spend X amount on ads. We get so many people come in, and we're converting a few, whatever the percentage is on the back end of that. Okay. To fix the process and get a higher conversion and sales rate out of the current client base is a longer term play. There's more things in that process to fix. I can't fix that straight away. But we know we get people out of this process at the end. And at the moment, we have these jobs that have paid us and we have money in the business bank, yes, it's going to get chewed down with making the system and paying wages. However, if I take that money and double or triple my ad spend now, I can speed up my pipeline, put more people through our process, and have more paying customers out the back end without actually fixing the pipeline itself yet. Now, it's inefficient in the big picture. That's an inefficient way of doing it. But if I can go from having 1 to 2 sales a month to 5 to 10 sales a month, well, the profit that I make more than makes up for that additional ad spend that I just spent on the front end. But it feels really risky because you don't know that that's exactly going to turn into paid customers. You're hoping. So in the early days of business, you do this blind. And I've done it. I've got an ad. I'll just put more money behind it. And it doesn't convert any better. You're like, what the heck? Now that I've done some training on advertising, I go, no wonder it didn't work. It was a terrible ad. And the platforms just won't push it any further. I didn't have that context originally.
But here's the thing that people don't understand though, is like we invest in ourselves in learning the skills rather than, oh, I'll just employ somebody to do it. It's like we need to understand how those parts of business work. Like marketing is like, oh,
Yes.
marketing is not my part, but it's like we need to understand marketing before we can actually hire a team and go, no, this is how I want things to be. Or we need to be good closers or sales person before we employ people, because then we can say, all right, the way that you're talking to the prospects is not right. This is the script and I want you to follow through. These are the words that I want you to use in terms of the closing, in terms of sales, in terms of negotiating.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I fought this so hard. I had a few people tell me, you need to learn sales, you need to learn marketing, you need to learn closing, you need to learn how to run ads. And I was like, if I can just have a couple of paid customers, I've got that little balloon chunk of money, I'll just pay people to come in and do it for me, and that will be much faster and I don't have to learn it. The bit that I missed in every one of those conversations was you don't have the context to make the decisions as a business owner if you haven't done it. So
Absolutely. Yeah. And I find a lot of solopreneurs, like, that's what you think. It's like, I don't want to deal with this. I just want to do the business and that's it. Let me get people to come in to cover that space, cover that role so that I don't have to deal with it whatsoever. But because of that, that usually would harm the business even further. If you don't look into it properly, because then you don't know if that person's making the right decisions that will benefit your business. So it's good as a business owner that we have to understand some sort of strong foundation in regards to every sector of our business, be it JT, he's going down the route of electrician and all this service, all the trades, and he has no idea, I reckon, how to change. I don't know, probably he knows how to change a light bulb, but it's that side of things where there's certain areas in our business that we have to understand, and then we can always leverage it out to somebody. But then if need be, then we just take a spanner out and start changing and helping out the business. So that's what solopreneurs tend to miss out is in the fact that both of us, growing from a solopreneur to building up a business as entrepreneurs, is that we've gone through that cycle of we can do it all by ourselves. Let's wear all the hats in the room, without actually understanding that it's actually harming our business on a larger scale. Like, we need to understand marketing, sales. We need to understand how to become a better leader. It's like, saving money ends up costing us more money.
Yeah. And look, I think there's also the flip side of that too, is that you can palm out the hat wearing too fast. And this comes with another warning that I've heard and 100% agree with, is don't give people titles too early. So I'm employing a guy into the business at the moment who I think is going to probably end up becoming, and definitely has the ability to become, the COO, the Chief Operations Officer of the business, as we scale and we hit, say 100, 200 employees. At that realm, he would still be a great fit for that role. Now, I have to, by definition, have a couple of titles as the business owner, as the company owner, as director and the CEO. I'm already aware that in time, I shouldn't be the CEO. CEO is an employment role, and you should find somebody who has skill in that area. I need to wear the hat for a while to learn the role, so I know what the role looks like when I bring somebody in. But for this person that I'm hiring, it's like, I would love to make them COO, and that'd be great, and they'd feel good, and we'd give them a title, and we kind of run this C-level operation in a business. If for some reason he turns out to be the wrong guy, or a better option comes along, but I've already instated him as COO of the company, you will destroy the friendship, the partnership, and the work relationship by trying to demote somebody.
Mm.
And so then all of a sudden you've got this idea of going, like, now do I take someone who's actually really good for the business, try to convince them to step down in the business hierarchy, which nobody wants to do? Or do you solve it in the front end and just say, the moment I just need you to fill this role and this role at the base level, and we're not giving anybody any of these top titles because we're not that size company that needs them yet.
But then there's also another way of putting it is in regards to, being upfront, like telling them, there's a possibility of growth, there's a possibility of you, running more things, and you possibly getting a better pay. I think people like the word pay, right? So rather
Yeah.
than title, it's like then we can grow together as you work yourself up with the business, and I'd like you to eventually, be partners or something like that when we do grow and if it fits.
Yeah. And I think that like this comes more into those bigger business strategies, but you need to have ascension pathways for any employment.
Mm.
You need people to be able to see how they can scale up, because if people think that they're stuck and stagnant, as soon as they feel like they've got a good grasp on the job, they instantly go to, well, I can't grow any further now. It's boring. A lot of people want some kind of ability to challenge themselves and move up when they decide that they want to. But if there is no pathway, that's where you get high staff turnover, where people are dissatisfied in their job and it doesn't look like they can sort of go any further with it. It's like, nah, I'm kind of done here. I want to do something else, even if it's just out of boredom. So
So
that's sort of more.
a lot of solopreneurs tend to give up very easily down the track. Now, I know both of us have faced challenges where there are times where, correct me if I'm wrong, but we do feel like that, we feel like just giving up because of how challenging it does, like for myself anyway. And like for yourself, what would you advise solopreneurs out there to overcome that thought process of, man, this is too hard, maybe I should just, hang my hat and that's it?
I got two quotes to go with that one, and both from other people. One is, this is what hard feels like, and that's okay. This is normal. And the other one was, if you don't feel like quitting about twice a month, you're not doing anything anyway. So if you're trying to find this comfortable, cushy, I'm just going to sit back and money's just going to roll in, the people you see that are actually doing that, and don't believe the internet because most of those people are lying, but the ones who are actually living that lifestyle have worked their absolute tail off to get there. And they've gone through, it's that old thing of, it took 10 years to become an overnight success. Nobody sees the come up. Nobody sees the struggles. And you are going to sit there and question all of your life choices on a regular basis. Why am I doing this? This is stupid. You're going to doubt yourself. And doubt comes from a lack of evidence. And so I've walked this a lot, where you're on the phone talking to somebody about this next move you're about to make, and you're really trying to get them to buy into the vision. And they don't see it. They don't understand it. You didn't communicate it well enough. And you get off the phone going, maybe they're right. Maybe I am fake. Maybe, maybe this isn't, maybe I shouldn't do this. This was a dumb idea doing this. And you go through all this self-doubt. Now, change the scenario. If you had done 100 of whatever it is you're telling this person about, you've done it 100 times and you have all the evidence and photos and videos of you doing it, do you think you would still sit there and think, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this? Of course not, because you've got the evidence that you've done it. Where we struggle is because we're trying to grow into an area we don't have evidence for yet. And so we believe, we think we can do it. And there's a lot to be said for, self-motivation in that respect. But motivation is only a very temporary thing. It's the bit that gets you out of the gutter and back on your feet. The rest of what actually gets you there is just dogged determination and hard work. And that's the bit that sucks, because you can be on a really good business model, have a really good product, be a great person, everything's right, but you just haven't figured out, maybe it's sales. Maybe you haven't figured out lead generation. So not enough people are coming in. There's not enough money coming in. One little fix and the thing will take off. But you don't know which one it is yet because you don't have the experience. So you're like, oh, I'm sure this is a good idea. Why isn't it working? And we all struggle with that. Like if we all knew exactly what we were doing in every decision, we would all have nine-figure businesses.
We would be making decisions every minute of the day, to be
But we would have the
honest.
financial evidence for it as well.
Yeah.
It's because we don't know some of those finer details in that process that we're not there yet.
Mm.
And that is a constant learning. And so it's okay to feel like this is so hard. Another quote that I really love is that hard work that you're afraid of and that hard work that is in front of you is also the greatest gift, because it is the barrier of entry to everybody else as well. So if you can get past it and your competition gives up, then you've won.
So a friend of mine asked me the question, like, if you could go back, if you had the chance to go back in, go forward in future and see all the steps that you need to take in order to achieve your success, like, would you take it? And my answer was no, because then you wouldn't have that energy, or I wouldn't have that energy of figuring it out, making all the mistakes. Then later on, in future, I know what route to not take in order to reach that success. If I knew that like door number 3 was the door to success, that wouldn't have built me all the other skills that I've had to learn along the way.
Yeah, there is definitely that learning from both positive and negative. I don't see that anything that happens in life as a total negative. There is
Mm.
always something that you can learn from, even if it's learning what not to do again. And there's a lot of our learning comes out of that.
But here's the thing, like for growth, is we need to understand as solopreneurs, moving into entrepreneurship is the fact that we need to change the circle of friends and family that we have around us. And changing the family does not mean that they have to be blood related. It could be like, friends that are like family.
Yep.
So it's expanding your circle and being around people who are like-minded, who can encourage and support you, rather than someone that would say, oh, that's a bad idea, that's not the right way of doing it, because that pulls us more into the feeling of doubt, I think.
Yep.
and
Yeah.
and another thing is, in regards to growth, is we need to have a clear vision of what we want in our business, because if we don't have that clear vision, then we can't, it's like the vision that we have is like a carrot dangling in front of us, like that's where we want our business to grow. So if we don't have that clear vision of what we want, then it's really difficult to kind of push through all the challenges and hurdles that we come across.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you've got to if we're talking back to the solopreneurs in this discussion, most people have an idea of what that future they're hoping for. Most people don't know how to draw that roadmap. So it's one thing to say you need to have a map and a vision and a plan of how you're going to get there. You really need somebody to walk you through how to map that out. Because and I've been in this boat where you're like, I'm going to, let's say, I'm going to make $100 million a year. Cool. Great vision. How?
Mm.
Oh, I'll
So
sell more
that's
stuff.
where the clarity of it, like the clear vision of
Yep.
where you need to be. Yeah.
So one thing I was going to say earlier, when it comes into like the selling and actually running the business, one of the key things I think that, and I didn't do this, you need to map out that strategy. You need to map out your costings, and you need to build what they call an MVP, a minimum viable product. Now that often refers to the product itself or the service itself, that it's viable and people want it. You need to calculate in and work out what your gross profit margins are and what your net profit margins are in that model. You then need to work out how many of those you need to sell over what time frame as the bare minimum for you to survive. And you're going to have to hit that point solo. So you need to be able to make enough income that you can pay your rent, eat, cover your business costs. Rent might be a friend's couch. Like, it doesn't have to be flash. And I would suggest make those costs as little as possible. If you can share a place with a mate while you're getting going, do it. Cut your costs as much as possible, because now you don't need to sell as much. And find out what that minimum is. Hit that as quick as you can. Do it by any means necessary. Sell to your friends and family. Ask people for favors, like beg, borrow, grovel. Don't steal. Skip that one. But, everything else, get that minimum amount that you can see that it will work enough to support you at a bare minimum. Then you can start making one step at a time improvements, which might be, cool, I managed to do that with no advertising, just friends and family. all right, let's get some more customers in. I'm going to start learning how to advertise. I'm going to learn how to create an offer and market to people I don't know. Let me learn that skill. And that's going to take a bit of time. You're not going to get it first go. Then learn marketing. How are you going to actually, show people in the world your business and how you show up online? Build some content. And there's a bunch of free strategies you can do. All of it's going to take time. And as solopreneurs, we want to get to I want my 100 grand a year now.
Now, yeah.
And it's not possible. The very, very few percentage of people trip over something and it just magically works. 99.9% of everybody else has to do the hard slog. And it looks like, oh, I need marketing. Right, that's my next thing. It's not, but you think it is. And so you take the little bit of nest egg you've got, you borrow some money off a mate, and you put it into marketing, and it doesn't work. But what you just learned is what not to do. Now, it's an expensive lesson at that point. Let's say you just sunk 5 grand into that. You may have only had 6 grand that you could drag from every resource possible, and you just blew 5. Done it. It feels miserable because you're like, I just destroyed my business. Almost. And you're going to do it again, and you're going to do it again until you learn the lessons. And so don't be scared that that's what you go through. That's normal. It's just being able to realize that feels really bad. That hurt. And the purpose of it hurting so bad is actually the blessing. Because
but the thing is, that's why we need to understand every aspect of our business, whether or not it's marketing, sales, or whether or not it's customer service. We need to understand where the problem's coming from before we can pull the plug and make that calculative decision in regards to pulling that plug instead of, just burning the cash that we may not or may have.
Yep.
So
you'll only ever burn the cash you've got. You can't burn what you don't have. You just don't have a business anymore.
true.
And look, and I've been in this boat too. I've had to get to the point of going, I'm going to make this play. It may not work. And if it doesn't, my only other option is I have to pause the entire business and go get a job somewhere and go back on wages, work for somebody else, suck up my pride and just earn money because I have bills to pay. But I have a trade behind me so I could fall back onto a trade. Never want to go doing that. And I was allergic to considering it, but it was okay, if all else fails, I can still make sure the people in my life have, their basics covered. I'm just going to have to, suck eggs for a while and go back to that and build it back from zero again. Okay. Thankfully, I haven't had to do that, but we've been that far off it a number of times. And it's going through, and then as you get better and you've been through some of these just blind, I'll give this a shot and it doesn't work out, you get smarter. And so as we were talking earlier, the marketing one is a great example. It's hey, I need marketing. Oh, this person does marketing. Cool. I have no idea what marketing is. I'll give it to them. And then you sink a chunk of money and nothing positive comes out the other end of it. And you go, what the hell? I thought I'd engaged a professional to fix my problem. My problem is still here. It's not fixed. And so that was a really good lesson to then come back and go, what did I learn from that?
Or why didn't it work?
Yeah. And so you then get to analyze in real time with real data and your experience what actually happened. If you do that, you can make a much smarter decision next time. And this is why, as you said, would you just jump ahead? It's no. You need to go through the character development and the learning opportunities of bad decision making so that you learn how to make better ones. You can't just wake up one day and make all the perfect decisions. Doesn't happen. And so it's okay to go through that valley of pain and despair and misery.
It's necessary.
On a semi-regular basis. Don't think that just because you did it once that's it either. You'll be back there. And we're all there. So it's don't feel bad. Yeah, it feels bad in the moment, but don't think you're the only one going through it. We all go through it.
Oh my gosh, I've lost 5 figures worth of, money on marketing. And it's okay. And I had to pull the plug because I was just burning it. And I was no, something is not working. We have to stop. Whatever they were doing, something was not working. So, it's pulling the plug and then rethinking, okay, how can I do this better? What can I do differently? Is it because the hashtags are wrong? Is it because the way that the marketing people are dealing with is incorrect? So it's understanding it further. So it's okay to fail. It's okay to burn some cash,
Yep.
but it's learning from that, as we say. So I think the outtake of this, it's more of worst case scenario, best case scenario, most likely, and then 5 4 3 2 1 decide, isn't it?
Yep. And the other thing is work out what you're prepared to put into a decision cost wise. So just because, yes, you have to take calculated risks and all the rest, don't throw caution out the window and just go, I'm just going to make dumb decisions and I'll make as many as I can just because apparently that's how you learn. No, you still need to be smart about which ones to make. So, for example, the person that I'm currently looking to employ who is going to be really great, they've already got a bunch of skills. I don't actually need a lot of their skills yet, but I will. And I'm making a calculated decision on I don't want to lose the opportunity of having this person in the business because of the skill set I'm about to need. I don't need it today, but it is a very good future play. So that means it's going to cost me more today than what I wanted to put in at the moment. But in the bigger picture, because I am definitely on this growth path, I'm going to need it. So I need to find extra cash I hadn't budgeted for to employ this person. And I will do that. I've got other strategies I can do that. But it wasn't something I had planned for. And it kind of cuts a lot of my, the gross profit out of the business to make this play. But it's a good calculated decision because I have the context to make that decision now. Now, in the past, I've employed people because I had the mindset of I'm super busy. I need people. Sounds logical. Cool. The next bit that I didn't know to ask is, what are you going to get them to do? Can you write it out in a dot point format of what you are employing them to do? What are their tasks? What does a completed task look like? And how are you going to measure it? If you can't answer that, you can't employ somebody because you do what we've all done and go, I just need a somebody. And you get a somebody and you start paying wages and then you realize they're standing there going, what do you want me to do? And you're like, I don't know, do your thing. And they're like, but you haven't told me the thing. I don't know what I'm doing. And you both end up in conflict. There's not good communication and the whole thing falls over and you're like, crappy employees. You just can't find anyone good to work these days.
And I'll go back to wearing the multiple hats that I have.
Rather than going, where was the skill deficiency there on your side as the entrepreneur or solopreneur? What was the skill deficiency?
Yeah.
You don't know how to hire. You don't know how to train. You don't know how to write an SOP. You don't know how to set KPIs for that job role. Well, there right is the starting place of before you hire, you need to fill that and fix that. And that might take you 50 hours of YouTube videos of learning what do those things even mean? How would I even do that in my business? Go learn that, figure that out at least at a base level. Then you've got some structure to employ somebody into. And so we often see the problem. We think that we've got the fix figured out. If we don't have some kind of coaching or mentoring or people to get the in-between information from, or at least bounce the idea off.
Absolutely. And you're straight on the nail. Like I was going to say that it's like employing a coach like myself, in regards to this is what you should be doing, these are the steps that you need to take and why you need to take it. It's not just, as you said, just employing any Tom, Dick, or Harry and then now what,
Yeah.
So it's knowing the why and knowing how rather than, okay, these are the steps and then what, right?
And measuring performance is something that I, for well over a decade, never understood how to or why I should. Because you're like, that's more admin time. That's more like number crunching. And I'm a trade guy. I don't do number crunching. I'm not an accountant. I just want to do the work. And I just want them to do the work. But if you can't track it, you can't measure it. So you don't know where all your money is disappearing out of your business.
Yeah.
This is personal retelling of my story.
Yeah.
Of getting to the end and going, how come we made negative money this year? How come we don't have, we've had 5 guys working flat out all year and we have no money. This comes back to that business structure idea of going, if you don't know where the holes are in the bucket, if you don't have the data, if you've got something that overall makes negative 1% net profit, then if you 10x the input into that system, your losses increase, not your income. And so you've
Absolutely.
got to actually fix the base level of the thing first, then you can scale it. And I think we have these visions and we're too quick to want to scale, but we don't have anything scalable because we haven't fixed the base level.
Yeah, which brings up a problem in the future. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Now, Simon, we always tend to talk a lot, and our talks are like really interesting, and we tend to overdo it because it's just so amazing. Like the way that we learn things. It's like, oh my gosh, if I was back in the day, if I did things differently, things would come out different. Or all the mistakes that we've learned. We always laugh about the mistakes that we've had to go through in regards to
Either that or
the
cry.
skills. Yeah, cry with the tissue. The skills that we've developed along the way. So guys, if you're interested in maybe off-grid solar, I will leave the description on in regards to how you can get in touch with Simon. Otherwise, if you love our chat and you like us to communicate and talk about more topics to help you through your transition from a solopreneur to entrepreneur, let us know, and I can always get Simon back on as we talk further into the whole world of your transition into entrepreneurship. So, other than that, remember to like, subscribe, and follow through my podcast episode. But thank you, Simon, for being here and sharing.
It's been great to chat. Thanks very much.
All right, guys, I'll see you and catch you on another episode.